Nigerian politicians have started to throw their hats in the ring to indicate their interest ahead of the 2023 general elections in Nigeria. Today makes it exactly a year to the 2023 presidential election, and aspirants in the two main political parties, the All Progressives Congress, APC, and People's Democratic Party, PDP, as well as some other parties, are positioning for the most coveted office in the land. Even though the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, is yet to blow the whistle to signal the start of electioneering, the political space is buzzing with the activities of potential aspirants who have started doing the legwork early, meeting critical stakeholders in an effort to sell their aspiration and win critical endorsement. Although about 11 individuals from diverse backgrounds have formally declared their intentions to vie for their party's ticket, many of the big names being touted as nursing political ambitions are yet to make a formal announcement, even though their footprints are all over the political space. In the next few months, the political space is expected to be crowded, with the big names currently holding consultations in secret and in not-so-secret places, finally coming out to formally make their pitch. Well, we have exactly 1 year to go, so this is really in order. I mean, as I just read there are a few people were playing a game of will he or won't he. The Vice President, Yemi Osinbajo, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. We also have former Senate President Bukola Saraki. You know, there's some indications, but no confirmation yet. We also have Minister of Transport Rotimi Amechi. We have Governor Bala Mohammed, all sort of being expected to make some kind of announcement soon. But we have those who have come out in the APC, PDP, and other parties. We have one woman among them, Khadija Okunu Lamidi, and a young man called Chukwuka Monye in his early 40s. But in the APC, we have obviously Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, whose aspiration has been gathering a lot of interest and criticism, I must say. We have Rochas Okorocha, same can be said of his ambition, interest, and criticism. You have David Umahi, who decamped from PDP to APC. That hasn't stopped him from trying to vie for the top job and get that ticket there. Yahaya Bello, another young candidate from Kogi State, the governor of Kogi State. We have Sani Yerima. In the PDP, you have Mazi Samu Wambua. Also in the PDP, former SSG, Anim Pius Anim, and also former Senate President. You have Dele Mamadou, and you have Aminu Tambuwal, the governor of Sokoto. You have Kingsley Moghalu, the former deputy governor of the CBN in the ADC party. So it's all very interesting right now.
Okay, I see that this is a front page story in This Day Today. These Day editors and their permutations, you know, but okay, let's talk about that. You know, because in that regard, I don't want to criticize my own editor, but it's fine. There are persons who have come forward to say that they are interested in the presidency of Nigeria, and who have made it categorically clear that they are interested. Now, the list on the front page of This Day, this morning, talks about persons who have shown interest, who have said, look, we're interested in this. And in that category, you have persons like Lamidi Okuno, the young lady, the only lady who has tried to aspire at that high level, Okuno Lamidi, and then Dele Momodu, and then Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Ayem Pius Ayem, and Dave Umahi, Senator Ojuzo Kalu's name is not out there, and it's not part of those pictures on the screen. But these are persons who have stepped forward to say, look, I'm interested. I want to lead Nigeria. And I think that, the courage, the conviction of those persons, no matter how they travel, turns out for them, should be noted. As compared to persons who sit in the background and they say, oh, people are pushing me. They say I'm the best thing since the invention of a toothpaste and that I'm the man who can save Nigeria. I don't want to hear that. If you want to be president of Nigeria, step forward. We have just about 15, 16 months to go. Come forward and tell us, like Kingsley Moghalu, like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, like Ayem Pius Ayem, like the others on that list of confident persons who have come forward. Don't come and tell me that it's people from my village that are pushing me, it's people from my constituency who are disturbing me. No, that's complete idiocy, given the kind of experience that we have had since 1999. As at this moment, whoever is interested in the presidency of Nigeria should just come out and say, I'm interested in this race. We don't mind what platform you are interested in or what platform is pushing you forward, but just let us know that at least you are interested in the job. Because when you get there and you misbehave and you don't perform, don't come back and tell us that, oh, you know, I was not even interested in this job. I was pushed into it. That's the kind of narrative we're getting in Nigeria at this particular moment that I think is unacceptable. So when this day goes out there and talks about those who are emerging, who have declared, and those who are yet to declare, anybody that has not yet declared should do so right away so that we will know exactly what we are dealing with. We don't want diffident potential candidates who are forced to do it. Nigeria has passed that stage where Nigerians are looking for people who are being forced to lead them. Now that list that has been provided by these day editors does not include the development, the phenomenal case of a 102-year-old woman, Mama Africa, as she's called, the founder of the Senior Citizens Leaders of Nigeria, who went to NTA this week and went there to declare that if younger generations are not interested in this presidency of Nigeria, she is ready to lead Nigeria, 102 years old. And that's an indication of the kind of problem that we face in Nigeria at the moment. Right? It's so bad now that a woman of over 100 years, right, an octogenarian, says, we have to lead Nigeria because these other people, these other generations don't know what to do. In other words, we need to focus more as we move to 2023 on the leadership recruitment process. The next president of Nigeria should be a man whose image will promote equity, justice, fairness. His image should be that of a man or a woman. I hope more women will come forward who can show that they have what it takes to lead Nigeria. The kind of leadership that we want is a leadership that can offer what they have. There's a principle in law. You'll be familiar with that. Nemo dat could not have it. No man can offer that which he does not have. We should not put people into leadership positions just because they have been pushed or they are interested. And I hope that going forward, the electoral process will be guided by the supremacy of the choice of the electorate. It's the people that should make the choice. And it is in all of those regards that people are saying President Muhammadu Buhari should pay close attention to that Electoral Act Amendment Bill as re-amended. It doesn't mean that it would solve every problem in Nigeria, but perhaps some of the provisions in that law will move us a step forward. And then, if we succeed with 2023 general elections, we can further amend that Electoral Act. And then the political parties themselves should behave, because they are very central to the electoral process. The kind of conduct that we have been seeing from the two dominant political parties is enough to give anybody hypertension. And I will not be surprised if that is the reason why an octogenarian, a woman of 102 years old, is saying, look, these young people, they have lost it. Let the centurions who are still alive, let them come and rescue Nigeria. Are we going to get a point where we will go and have a Lazarus effect and resurrect people from the grave? To say, please come and lead Nigeria, because the living cannot do it. That's the kind of desperate situation in which we have found ourselves. And I hope that everybody will realize that it's not just about pasting posters around the country or just saying I'm interested or that people are pushing me. No. The Nigerian electorate must insist on certain standards, even beyond Section 131 of the Constitution of Nigeria, to say no imbecile, no dimwit, no funny character can lead Nigeria. This is the time to come together. Kingsley Moghalu was out there yesterday, although he has not been picking his phone calls. I don't know why he thinks he should not pick his phone calls. He's talking about a third force. Other people are talking about a third force. Is that what we need? If we need that third force should step forward right now. Because we are at a point where Nigeria has to be rescued, as the 2022 committee has said, and as the Nigerian Rescue Movement has said. Nigeria needs to be rescued. We should not repeat the mistakes of the past. This is my take on this subject.
Well, thank you, Dr. Abati. I do agree with you that the reluctant president shtick is really overplayed at this point. We make a virtue of people not wanting the position and having to be cajoled or forced into it. And, you get the results that you deserve there. That's all on the news headlines. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Rosa Sadiri, Michael Wilson, Adeswa Morwan, and Aaron Akirjala to give us updates on Africa and global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rosa Sadiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rotis.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. Yes, lots to discuss. GDP, Nigeria's GDP figures were released yesterday by the Bureau of Statistics, and we're going to jump right in there. Quarterly GDP on your screen at the far right, 3.98%. in the fourth quarter, highest growth in about 7 years. And you can see the chart there, Q4 2020. This is where we started the recovery after the recession, where we contracted by 6% in Q2 2020, and then 3% in Q3 2020 as well. So the recovery started in Q4, 11 basis points growth. And then Q1 2021, 51 basis point growth. And then you can see the big jump there because of the base effect. Q2 2021, 5%. But then it started to slow down a bit, 4.03% in Q3 2021. And then, of course, 3.98% in Q4. Are we ahead of population growth? Yes, we are. But what are those population growth figures based on? They're based on the last census. So we need another census in order to get our new population. And then we can average from the last one to know if population growth is still at 2.7%. 2.8 or 3 or 3.5 or 4 and so on and so forth. So that's why we need a census. But as of last figures, Nigeria is officially growing ahead of population. Next up, the sectors. This was a non-oil growth story. Okay, this is annual GDP. So full year GDP was also released. Again, 3.4% at your far right, 2021. You can see there from when the administration started, 2.79% 2015. You had the two recessions in 2016 and 2020, 1.58 and 1.92 in the negative region. But again, 3.34 for full year. This was a non-oil story. For anyone asking, how did this happen? It's non-oil that pushed us forward. But let's start with oil production. Look at that. A new low, new quarterly low for oil production, 1.5 million barrels per day in Q4. It was 1.57 in Q3. Q4 2020, 1.56. You can blame the OPEC cuts. We had that This Day newspaper story, $29 billion lost to oil theft, vandalism, aging oil infrastructure. So this is why, for anyone wondering why oil prices are above $90 and Nigeria is not making enough money, reserves are not appreciating, that's why, low production. Contribution, you will see here, orange bar, non-oil growth, non-oil contribution to GDP versus oil contribution to GDP. It's been, oil contribution to GDP has been declining. At the far right of your screen, you'll see the share of the economy between the two of them, 94.8% for the orange bar for non-oil growth, 5.9%. We haven't had that low of a contribution since the fourth quarter of 2020 when it was 5.87%. Now let's look at the top contributors to non-oil growth. Again, same story. 55% services, your hairdressers, your barbing salons, is vulcanizer a word? Your vulcanizers and so on and so forth. All people providing services, 55% of the economy, 27% agriculture, 18% for services. Now, if we get into the sectors, again, it was really agriculture, financial services and so on that pushed this. But mining, Mining continues to be a really, really terrible story. Mining contracted by 6.1% in the fourth quarter of 2021. It is a sector that continues to struggle, and more needs to be done in mining. We move to agriculture very quickly. Agriculture grew by 3.58% in Q4. Most of this was crop production, which is one of the subsectors in agric, along with fisheries, foresting, and livestock. Q3 was 1.22%. So we've seen the impact of the things like the Anchor Borrowers program and the focus on agriculture there. We moved to manufacturing. Manufacturing slowed. Q4 was 2.28%. It was 4.29% in Q3. The manufacturing sector, it's still got a number of issues facing it: FX, infrastructure, power, so on and so forth. But manufacturing can do better. 2.84% is, again, it slowed from Q3. Trade, that was grew by 5.34% in the fourth quarter. It slowed. I mean, it was almost halved. In the third quarter, it was 11.9%. We've had 2 consecutive trade deficits in 2019 and 2020. Look at our trade deficit with China, for instance. In fact, President Buhari is in Europe right now, Belgium, I believe, talking to the EU about new deals that can promote jobs and reduce migration. He's talking about trade while he's there as well. ICT, this is one of my favorite sectors. Shout out to Rufai, whoever he is. ICT slowed as well, 5.03% in Q4, down from 9.6% in Q3. Telcos, telecommunications, which is a subsector there, 5.3%, down from 10.87%. The big growth we saw in 2020 during the pandemic, a lot of people were at home, they were on their phones, there was double-digit growth. It looks like the telco and ICT and subsector telcos, looks like they're coming off from their highs from the pandemic when everyone is at home. Real estate still abysmal, 1.47% growth in Q4, down from 2.32% in Q3. Real estate, all of 2020, I think save for only the third quarter, the entire place was in a recession. And then you got finance and insurance, which grew by 24.12% in the fourth quarter. So that's still another sector where we're seeing growth. So that's your gross domestic product story as far as the economy is concerned.
Can I comment on this?
Yes, please.
Okay, you talked about 3.98%.
Yes.
That 3.98% is year on year.
Yes.
The actual growth that is being celebrated is a 3.4%. In the quarter 4 of
3.98
quarter of 2021.
3.98 is your fourth quarter growth. 3.4 is full year growth.
No, the papers are reporting essentially 3.4%. But the important thing about it is that it is higher than what was predicted by IMF.
Yes.
Than what was predicted by Bloomberg. Bloomberg predicted 1.4%. Than what was even predicted by the World Bank. And it's the highest growth rate in 7 years, and significant growth since the recession of 2020. And even more important is the indication that this is coming from the non-oil sector.
Yes.
Okay, oil is the major source of foreign exchange for Nigeria, right? But we have seen in this particular report that the non-oil sector can do better. But there are questions. You raised the issue about population. You say, population growth rate is put at 2.7%. Now, that's a UN estimate benchmark, right? Which we have been using to predict Nigerian population. All this talk about Nigerian population will be over 400 million in 2050 is based on that benchmark. So the 3.4% growth rate that you talk about looks like it's slightly above that UN estimate.
Yes.
But the question is, can we sustain it? Now, economists like Bismarck Rewani and
he's on the Global Business Report today.
Adebayo.
Yes.
When you bring them onto this program, they are likely to tell you, I'm not a mind reader, but based on what I've heard from them on this same program previously, they will say, look, it's nothing to celebrate, to jump around like a yo-yo about. Because for Nigeria to reach a growth point, then Nigeria will need to have a double-digit growth rate. So a 3.4, growth rate of GDP is really nothing, considering the issues within the Nigerian economy. The second issue is that the point about about oil export is that there was contraction.
Yes.
Because we could not meet our output. The highest average output we could meet in 2021 was 1.5 million barrels, per day, far below the estimate, the quota that were given by the NNPC. So what is the question there? Why is that an issue? The second issue, of course, will be how do you address that? Okay? So third, we have an indication now that there is great potential in the non-oil export sector, right? So what is Nigeria doing? The sectors that were indicated, agriculture, yes, insurance, financial services, telecom, and all of those. Okay, could it be that the growth in 2021 is tied to the fact that in 2021 there was some gradual global economic recovery despite Omicron variant, but at least the global economy opened up a bit. So all that talk about diversification of the economy, about the oil sector, I think Nigeria needs to take a second look at that. Instead of this enthusiasm, this excitement, we have grown at 3.4%. No.
Right.
Can we sustain it? Now for this year, the economy is expected to expand by 4.2%. The CBN is looking at 2.86%. The IMF is looking at something a little beyond 2%. Can we meet those projections?
Those figures.
What are the headwinds? What is likely to happen? So I just want us to moderate our enthusiasm about this GDP growth. And when you talk about GDP growth, I link it to the issue you brought up yesterday about inflation, about purchasing power. If my people cannot buy bread at an affordable price, right, and you are talking about GDP, I think it's just voodoo economics, in my view.
Point well made, and thank you for pointing that out. The oil sector did contract, I think, by about 8%. Non-oil grew by 4.73%. I need to bring that out as well.
What was that target from the CBN for the non-oil sector again?
As far as GDP growth?
Yeah.
For this year? Well, it was in the range of about 3%. So that was still single-digit growth. Now, look, the key thing to remember here is that it's a recovery, right? You've had 2 recessions in 4 years. So as Doctor pointed out, it's not something to be celebrated, but it does show that Nigeria is recovering, even though you've seen a slowdown from 5% in Q2 and then 4% in Q3 and now 3.9% in Q4. So it's a recovery story. It's gradual, but more has to be done, as Doctor pointed out, to build on that growth.
All right, thank you, Rutus.
Thank you so much.
Moving on now to more business updates. Michael Wilson joins us from South Africa. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
Good morning to you all. Yes, so the tensions still continue. Ratcheting up. Kiev is accusing Moscow of attacking a village near the border. The US President Joe Biden has been saying that Russia is set to invade Ukraine within days. However, the diplomacy continues. So it's really what we've been saying all week, that major investors, major asset managers look at all this and think, well, there is going to be diplomacy, there'll be spikes of uncertainty, and that's really what the market is reflecting right now. So let's go to Asia Pacific first of all, take a look at mainland China. Their stocks slipped just as you'd expect, really. Shanghai Composite down about 0.4%. Japan's Nikkei shed 1.46%. Their core consumer prices rose for the 5th straight month in January, but at a slower pace. So it only looks like, I just say this, that it may be that Japan's central bank puts off raising interest rates again. No reversal as far as China is concerned on its tech crackdown. This is really something that the president was talking about late last year, but it's been reiterated in the Communist Party's latest bi-monthly journal. It's a sign that regulation is absolutely not going away as far as China and tech companies are concerned. We talked a little about this yesterday. The US, let's recap that. Stock futures up very, very slightly overnight, but basically what they were doing was dumping risky assets. The Dow was down about 600 points yesterday, and the S&P 500 dropped more than 2%, the NASDAQ down 2.9%. Now, if you add to that, let's talk about the St. Louis Federal Reserve President James Bullard. Now, we know that Mr. Bullard is a hawk, and he's been hawkish again. He's been saying that he's looking at a 1% increase, at least in the very near future, as far as the Fed is concerned, therefore as far as the US economy is concerned, because he says he's much more worried about inflation. What he said was, we're at more risk now than we've been in a generation, and this could get out of control. The US has added Tencent and Alibaba to what it describes as its notorious markets list. These are e-company sites, as you well know, and the problem here has been that that investigation has found that some of the products they've been selling are counterfeit and also just copies of what's going on at the moment. So it's basically these sites are trying to get over copyright laws. There are 42 online markets now, 39 physical markets that are reported. And as you know, America and China are continuing this long-running dispute over trade and technology. That's a further indication of that. Amazon yesterday, now Rotis and I were talking about this very briefly, but I'll just reiterate again that Amazon has now struck a global deal with Visa as far as credit cards are concerned. I mean, you can say what you like about it. I think that both need each other. Amazon needs Visa for customers to order online and pay by credit card, and they've actually done that too. And so that is in force from yesterday. Amazon had already postponed all this until discussions have taken place. Well, they have, and they're over now. Here's an interesting thought from the ECB. Their chief economist is somebody called Philip Lane, and what he's been saying is that Eurozone inflation will actually drop to 2%. Now, 2%, of course, is their sort of inflation target within the next couple of years. Whether it does or not, don't know. But what it's doing is, it's the message from the chief economist at the ECB, and he will be listened to because he is the chief economist, whether you agree with him or not, is that, of course, this postpones the reduction of this massive asset buying program that the ECB is now upon, and also what does it mean for ECB interest rates? I leave you to ponder that. I don't know the answer to it. But I think if the ECB chief economist is saying these sorts of things, I think the markets will probably listen. We were talking about this possibility yesterday. It's now confirmed, as far as the UK is concerned, that golden visas for anybody bringing in millions and saying they're going to invest in the country, those are now scrapped. So those golden visas are actually over. As far as the UK is concerned, and the workforce, about a quarter of the workforce has now returned to the office. It's about where it was in November when the Omicron pandemic started to emerge late last year. And let's finally talk about commodities now. Oil traders actually, for the moment, seem to be forgetting that oil's in a very, very tight market indeed. They're looking at it as a risky asset. I can't think why they are, but they are. And therefore, they took their money off the table. Gold is now looking very attractive, of course, as people fly to it as a safe haven asset. And as far as Bitcoin's concerned, well, we'll see about this. I think the jury's still out on the cryptocurrencies, but they're looking relatively risky at the moment. So I think when the price gets down to about, well, as far as Bitcoin's concerned, about $40,000, that people will start to take a bit more notice. That is the global view as we head into the weekend.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I wanted to talk about golden visas. Is this a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater? Was the whole point of scrapping the golden visas to sort of curtail the UK's attractiveness to kleptocrats, such that those people could be properly vetted and excluded for the scheme, and just regular, honest people and people who are not from hostile countries such as Russia, talking about maybe, is it 250 Indian multimillionaires in the past 10 years that have, been able to get golden visas. The UK and India have a great relationship. The UK and several other countries that produces these billionaires with £2 million to spare and want to invest in the UK. What do you think? Should the Tier 1 visa have been made tighter rather than scrapped entirely?
Yeah, I think really the important phrase that you used is, whether or not people can actually be vetted properly. So it's not just about the money. That's where this ruling is a bit opaque. It's said that if they're talking about money, then those golden visas are scrapped. However, I don't think it means that. I think you're absolutely right. You wouldn't want to throw the baby out the bathwater. We've got a very, very small economy in the UK. think it should be attracting people and should be attracting multi-billionaire entrepreneurs, provided they're not bringing dirty money in, illicit money, and provided it's not being laundered in the City of London. So I think that the general rule about the amount of money being brought in appears to be scrapped. But I hope, I'm completely with you on this, I hope it's not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, and that people who are genuine and are coming to the country and, want to employ people and all the rest of it, foreign direct investment, but properly vetted, should be allowed to continue. Absolutely.
Okay, Michael, so many issues. I don't know whether we have enough time to deal with them one after the other. The first one will have to be the European Union and the African Union Summit, which started yesterday. We have many of these summits: China, Africa, Russia, Africa, Japan, Africa, and at the end of the day, you have the superpowers giving grants or aid or promising investments to Africa. But everyone agrees that Africa is the next frontier. Nigeria alone will have over 400 million population, third largest populated country in the world by 2050. The population of Africa itself, currently 1.3 billion, will double by 2050. But at the same time, we have this imbalance in relationships. So the meeting started yesterday between the EU and African leaders. They are going to talk about those attractive things like COVID, like investment and all of that. But the big issue is the economic partnership arrangements between Africa and Europe, those 27 European nations, and also about agricultural subsidies. What, in your view, do you think African countries, African leaders need to do to take advantage of their strategic importance in geopolitical terms? That's one. The second one is Dollard. James Dollard, the St. Louis Federal Reserve president, is taking a different position from the Federal Reserve. He is saying that, look, the Fed needs to be more aggressive, and that by July there should be, an even more, a full percentage point position in terms of rate adjustment. But the Fed is saying, well, we have to adopt an accommodative stance. The Fed is looking at March and all of that. What do you think is in the best interest of the United States in that regard? And then finally, Alibaba and Tencent are already classified by the U.S. trade representative, or if you like, trade agency, as promoters of notorious products, substandard products on the internet. What are we dealing with here, considering the relationship between the U.S. and China? Is this data-driven, evidence-driven, or is it just politics as part of that conflict between the U.S. and China?
Okay. I've been to many of these conferences. I'm sure you have too. I'm as skeptical as you are about what actually happens. What do we want to happen? I think what needs to happen between Africa and the EU is a concrete agreement, because what's happening in Africa right now is not the EU, it's China. And I would have thought that their pattern of soft diplomacy, which, as you and I both know, and as I'm sure our viewers also know, is no more than offering cheap loans and then tightening the knot when countries find that they can't actually pay them. And a lot of finding that, as we've noted before on the programme, because of the cost of the pandemic and so on. So I feel that a more open agricultural policy would help. If nothing else, it would help to counteract what China is doing to what you quite rightly say, no doubt, will be the next frontier. It will be the next frontier if governments stop being selfish and start to indulge in things that cost a lot of money: infrastructure, jobs, education. That's the way forward. There is no point in offering. The point is building from within and then coming out. And then Africa would have to cope with the European farmers, for example, agriculture, who are notoriously defensive about their own markets. So there's a lot to discuss. Personally, I think it's very good that people talk. I am not over optimistic about the results of that, but I do feel as though any kind of relationship which Africa manages to achieve with the EU is good, because I personally, and I'm sure that a lot of people agree with this, I'm fairly sceptical about China's advance on the continent and whether it's good or bad, particularly not so much for big economies like Nigeria, but smaller developing ones as well, which are looking to China to complete infrastructure plans. I mean, there are many, many of them. And I think that these small countries need to be extremely careful. As far as Ballard is concerned, I mean, remember that, the Fed is a broad church. Yes, it's been holding back. I think many people see it behind the curve. It seems that Jay Powell has to redefine the policy every time they meet, every time they publish minutes. The latest phrase before they hit the most recent minutes yesterday, which I have to say I thought were relatively hawkish, but the markets didn't. They were saying that the Fed needs to be nimble and humble. In other words, it needs to take note of what's happening in the employment market in the United States before it acts. I have to say, I think that we're going to see an interest rate rise in March. I think the economy in the United States looks firing. And I would have thought that therefore the dollar, not that I would dare to offer investment advice, but I would have thought that from the outside of it, the dollar looks to be quite a good bet. As far as the ongoing trade war between the United States and China is concerned, yeah, it's absolutely clear that that's continuing. I mean, this is when a trade representative does this, it's not for China, it's for the consumption within the United States, that many people are making products which are being shamelessly counterfeited around the world, not just by China, but this is where this notorious markets list is actually focusing its attention right now. And I feel as though, if that is playing well, and what Ms. Lay is saying quite loudly is, these kind of counterfeit sites are threatening American jobs. So she's not, China doesn't care about that, but believe me, the population of the United States does. So she's playing very effectively for a home audience, and that will continue.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Olsen. Thank you very much indeed.
Now for an update on the COVID-19 pandemic, Adeswa Omoran is here with us. Good morning, Adeswa.
Good morning, Jundu. Good morning, Dr. Abati. Great to be here again. Well, in the past 7 days, we now know that infections globally have been on a decline, but we see some countries reporting record daily cases. For instance, in Hong Kong, authorities there now say hospital capacity has reached 90%. In South Korea, we are also seeing, in Singapore, beg your pardon, we are seeing record infections never seen before since the beginning of this pandemic, but that's not stopping the country from reopening. Here in Nigeria, 45 new cases were reported in 7 states as well as the Federal Capital Territory. No COVID-19 related death has been reported in Nigeria in the past 5 days. And that's some good news. Well, vaccines continue to arrive in Nigeria. More donations are being made, so it's no longer a problem of supply, but the demand meeting the supply at the moment. Well, yesterday, Spain became the latest country to announce a donation of 4.5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. The announcement was made by the ambassador of Spain, Juan Sol, yesterday here in the nation's capital when he visited the Chief Executive Officer of the NPHCDA, Dr. Faisal Shuaib. We're not told what vaccines they were, but we're told they're 4.5 million and they will be arriving in the country. Well, indeed, Dr. Batty, you mentioned this while speaking to Michael Wilson. The issues around the supply of COVID-19 vaccine is definitely top on the agenda at the EU-Africa Summit. But what is not likely to be discussed to a reasonable conclusion is the EU temporarily lifting its intellectual property rights protection for the vaccines for the duration of this pandemic. But South African President Cyril Ramaphosa says his demand for lifting those IP rights would still remain on the table and something he wants to push forward. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari and some 39 other African leaders are at that meeting. Well, at the summit yesterday, Ursula von der Leyen, who is the leader of the EU Commission, says EU has done a lot when it comes to, she promises to send more COVID-19 vaccines. Well, that the 27 bloc nation will send more COVID-19 vaccines to Africa in the short term. And in the long term, we invest so that the countries on the continent become self-sufficient. Meanwhile, yesterday, the WHO said countries struggling with surging COVID-19 infections may shorten recommended quarantine duration of 14 days to 10 days for asymptomatic persons and to 7 days for those who show negative tests. It says the guidelines may be helpful for places where essential services are under pressure. Well, these new guidelines also recommend that countries may relax their contact tracing. For instance, their contacts of people infected with COVID, but it says you can relax those contact tracing measures, but you should prioritize the tracing for those who are infected with COVID, those who are at risk, such as the health workers, and those who have underlying diseases. So the pandemic, it's a sort of signal that we may be moving from the pandemic phase of this situation to the endemic phase, but the WHO is still maintaining that the COVID-19 is not done with us at the moment. Finally, this morning, Israel is scrapping its Green Pass COVID-19 policy as infections in the country go down. Well, the certificate system required that people show proof of vaccination, recovery from the disease, and a negative test to enter into public events. All of that will end on the 1st of March. Back to you guys.
I'm a bit confused about Israel. I'll start with them. They're also announcing that Israeli travelers into Israel do not have to quarantine and other nationalities do. Is there any difference with how COVID-19 works or is transmitted in the bodies of Israelis and non-Israelis? I don't understand this constant nationalism in this issue with COVID. You either have all travelers quarantine when they land in your country or none. Quite frankly, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I also wanted to talk about BioNTech. I was reading this article, I don't know your thoughts about it, that their mobile vaccine factory that's coming to Senegal and Rwanda, not Nigeria, as we've noted here, is neo-colonialist in nature. When you compare it to the fact that Moderna in South Africa is reverse engineering Moderna's vaccination. So what they are offering us, what BioNTech is offering Africa, is neo-colonialist. What are your thoughts on that? Is that an overly harsh criticism?
I think, to be fair, it would be right to say that is overly harsh. We do know the capacity of the African countries at the moment, not just for COVID-19 vaccines, Tundu. For vaccines to prevent diseases, Africa has had to depend largely on foreign donors and other countries to vaccinate their vulnerable population. And COVID-19 doesn't make it much of a difference. As much as people like to hype the situation, it's been an existing problem to get Africans vaccinated against preventable diseases. And Moderna says is shipping those containers to Africa. Instead, this is dubbed the Biotainer because it's a factory, it's a laboratory inside a container. And I think they're trying to save costs because they have their laboratory already set up. They just have to be shipped to location. Why it chose Senegal and Rwanda, I don't think it's far-fetched. Because you see, scientists in South Africa has been leading for a while now when it comes to COVID-19. They have better genomic sequencing. It's better done in most countries on the continent. In Rwanda as well, we see them in terms of this pandemic. They've been tops in vaccination, in testing. So if you want to ship such an investment to a country, I think there are characteristics and qualities you should be looking out for, and perhaps that's why they've chosen those two countries. I don't think it would be fair to link it to neo-colonialism or colonialism at all.
Okay, let me start with the European Union African Union Summit. We started yesterday, on a good note, with President Muhammadu Buhari making a case for a new economic deal. Now, the EU African Union Summit, which started yesterday in Brussels, we talk about a lot of things. There is talk about COVID-19, which you have brought up and focused on. There is talk about coup d'etat in Africa. But I think the main issue is about trade relations. The everything but arms scheme deal between the EU and Africa, and also the Economic Partnership Act, the EPA agreements, the EPAs between Africa and the 27 countries of the EU. But that's not your focus. That was for Mr. Wilson's department. But as regards COVID-19, the EU is making a commitment to help build 2 state-of-the-art facilities in 2 African countries, in Rwanda and Senegal. So Senegal, Institut Pasteur, and then Rwanda. It is also promising to help Africa produce shots locally. That's it. And then to focus also on the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines in Africa. Ursula von der Leyen, the president of the EU Commission, made all of these commitments in the opening speeches. But with regard to COVID-19, the big issue on the table is the TRIPS, the trade-related aspects of international property rights, being pushed by South Africa and India, and saying that, look, you have to waive these intellectual property rights, even if temporarily, to allow countries in low and middle income countries to be able to develop their vaccines. But the big pharma that are backed by this same EU, they are saying no. There are other ways in which they can go about it. And that's why the whole of this week, we have had that conversation about bio-and-tech patents applications in South Africa, about Moderna, fill and finish projects in South Africa. The EU leadership, they are saying, okay, we'll support the WHO about the technological hub that it is trying to provide in South Africa. But if we don't go further to look at this issue of TRIPS, as it is called, then of course whatever the European Union is offering in terms of support may not go far enough. It's especially as we know that even most of those donations that come from Europe, they expire within 2.5 months, and many of these African countries cannot use that. But beyond all of that is the fact that the African leaders attending this summit will need to forge a new economic deal, which is the title of the essay by the Nigerian president in this particular case. Now, in Hong Kong, yesterday we talked about President Xi Jinping of China providing support for Hong Kong and challenging the Hong Kong Chief Minister, Carrie Lam, to move very quickly. The truth of the matter is that the situation in Hong Kong is getting worse because you refer to Singapore and Hong Kong. And yesterday I was saying Singapore with 5.2 million population and 64% immunization rate, and Hong Kong with 86% first dose vaccination, which is 7.5 million population, is doing badly. Now, what they have decided to do is to build emergency hospitals. China is also providing support. But the real issue here is that the infection rate has gone up from 2,000 daily on Tuesday to 5,000 cases daily as of yesterday, Thursday. Okay? But we'll see how it goes out. We'll see how these new measures work out, in Hong Kong. That also adopts a zero COVID policy as China. In Israel, the main argument in Israel, according to Naftali Bennett, the prime minister, is that, look, the infection rate has gone down. And that as a result of that, the green pass, can be reduced. People will not need to use it again by the 1st of March. And that's consistent with the trend that you find in other countries. The Netherlands, Austria, Norway, even the UK is saying that by the end of this month, they are going to adopt what is now emerging to be a living with COVID policy. And why is that so in all of these countries that we have mentioned? The only explanation is that, yes, there is the Omicron surge since November. In terms of transmissibility, it has been a problem. But in terms of leading to severe hospitalizations, that has not been the case. But we have to counter that with the WHO position that people must just be cautious because you never know what will happen next. Thank you, Adesso.